Master emotional detachment and become unshakable. There is a silent strength that most people spend their entire lives searching for, yet very few ever discover. It is not physical power. It is not wealth. It is not status, influence, or admiration. It is something far more rare. It is the ability to remain steady when the world expects you to break. It is the ability to stay calm when others lose control. It is the ability to walk through praise without becoming arrogant, and through criticism without becoming wounded. This strength has a name. It is emotional detachment. Most people misunderstand emotional detachment. They imagine it means becoming cold, distant, or incapable of feeling. But the Stoics taught something entirely different. Emotional detachment is not the absence of emotion. It is freedom from emotional slavery. It is the refusal to allow external events to dictate the condition of your inner world. Think carefully about how much of human suffering originates from this single mistake. Someone ignores a message, and your peace disappears. A stranger criticizes you, and your confidence collapses. A plan fails, and your entire sense of identity begins to crumble. In each case, the suffering is not created by the event itself. It is created by the meaning attached to the event. The ancient Stoics understood this truth with remarkable clarity. They observed that people rarely suffer because of reality. They suffer because of their interpretation of reality. Two people can experience the same event and emerge with completely different emotional outcomes. One becomes devastated. The other becomes stronger. The event remained identical. The judgment did not. This insight became one of the foundations of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics divided existence into two categories: things within your control and things outside your control. Your thoughts, choices, actions, attitudes, and character belong to you. The opinions of others, the behavior of strangers, economic conditions, aging, loss, reputation, and countless external events do not. Yet most people spend their lives attempting to control the second category. They obsess over how others perceive them. They desperately seek approval. They fight endless battles against circumstances they cannot change. They become emotionally exhausted because they have declared war on reality itself. Imagine standing in the ocean and commanding the waves to stop. Imagine shouting at the wind because it refuses to obey your preferences. Most people would recognize such behavior as absurd. Yet psychologically, millions do exactly this every day. They demand that life conform to their expectations, and when it refuses, they suffer. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that external events possess no inherent power over the mind. The mind grants that power voluntarily. Every insult becomes destructive only when accepted. Every disappointment becomes unbearable only when interpreted as catastrophic. Every obstacle becomes a prison only when viewed as one. The realization is unsettling because it removes excuses. If your emotional state is largely determined by your judgments, then responsibility returns to you. This is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating, because what belongs to you can be trained. The modern world encourages emotional dependency. Entire systems profit from keeping people reactive. Social media rewards outrage. News cycles amplify fear. Public discourse encourages constant comparison. People are trained to monitor the approval of strangers as if their survival depends upon it. The result is predictable. Individuals become emotionally fragile. Their mood rises and falls according to forces completely outside their control. A compliment creates happiness. A criticism creates despair. A promotion creates confidence. A setback creates self-doubt. Such a life can never be stable, because it is built upon unstable foundations. The Stoic path offers another possibility. Instead of building your identity upon external validation, build it upon internal standards. Instead of asking whether others approve of you, ask whether your actions align with your principles. Instead of seeking certainty from the world, develop certainty within yourself. This transformation does not occur overnight. It begins with a difficult observation. Most emotional suffering originates from attachment. Attachment to outcomes. Attachment to recognition. Attachment to expectations. Attachment to how others should behave. Attachment to how life should unfold. The greater the attachment, the greater the vulnerability. Consider a person who believes their worth depends upon being admired. Every interaction becomes a threat. Every criticism becomes an attack. Every successful rival becomes a source of insecurity. Their emotional stability depends upon maintaining an image that cannot be permanently maintained. Now, consider someone whose worth depends upon their character. They may still prefer admiration, but they do not require it. They may appreciate praise, but they do not depend upon it. They remain grounded because their foundation exists within their control. This distinction changes everything. One of the most powerful examples comes from the life of Epictetus. Before becoming a philosopher, he lived as a slave. He possessed almost no control over his external circumstances. Yet he became one of history's greatest teachers of freedom. Why? Because he discovered that freedom does not begin with circumstances. Freedom begins with perspective. A person can possess wealth and remain psychologically imprisoned. Another can possess very little and remain inwardly free. The determining factor is not what happens around them. It is what governs them from within. Epictetus taught that whenever something disturbs you, the true source of disturbance is not the thing itself, but your opinion about it. This principle sounds simple until life tests it. Someone insults you publicly. Your immediate reaction is anger. Yet pause for a moment. What actually happened? Words were spoken. The pain emerged only after interpretation. You concluded that the insult diminished your value. You concluded that the attack required a response. You concluded that your reputation had been threatened. The emotional reaction followed these judgments. The Stoic does not deny emotion. The Stoic investigates emotion. Instead of immediately reacting, they ask a question. What judgment created this feeling? This question alone can transform an entire life, because once the judgment becomes visible, it can be challenged. Must everyone approve of me? Must success occur exactly as planned? Must setbacks define my future? Must criticism determine my worth? Often the answer is no. And when the false judgment collapses, much of the emotional suffering collapses with it. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood forms of power: silence. The strongest individuals are rarely the most reactive. Observe human behavior carefully. When people feel insecure, they explain themselves constantly. They defend every action. They answer every accusation. They react to every criticism. They seek endless opportunities to justify their existence. The Stoics recognized a weakness hidden within this pattern. A person who must continuously explain themselves has surrendered authority over their emotional state. They have handed the steering wheel to public opinion. True strength requires something different. It requires the courage to let misunderstanding exist. It requires the discipline to remain silent when silence serves a greater purpose. It requires the confidence to continue walking toward your goals without demanding universal approval. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire, yet his private writings reveal a man deeply committed to inner discipline rather than public validation. He constantly reminded himself that fame was temporary, praise was temporary, criticism was temporary. Even entire civilizations eventually disappeared into history. Viewed from this perspective, many modern anxieties become strangely small. The comment that ruined your day. The opinion that kept you awake at night. The rejection that convinced you to doubt yourself. How significant. Will these appear 10 years from now? How significant will they appear a century from now? The Stoic perspective stretches beyond the emotional storms of the present moment and reveals a larger horizon. This does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming selective. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every criticism deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves consideration. One of the greatest forms of emotional maturity is learning what to ignore. Most people exhaust themselves because they attempt to respond to everything. Every insult becomes a mission. Every disagreement becomes a war. Every inconvenience becomes a crisis. The emotionally detached person understands a profound truth. Attention is a limited resource. Where attention goes, life follows. Therefore, they guard it carefully. They do not waste it on gossip. They do not waste it on resentment. They do not waste it on proving themselves to people who have already decided what they believe. Instead, they direct their attention toward self-mastery. This is where true power begins, because emotional detachment is not merely defensive. It is productive. Every moment not spent reacting becomes available for creation. Every ounce of energy not wasted on resentment becomes available for growth. Every distraction ignored becomes fuel for progress. History repeatedly demonstrates this principle. The individuals who achieve extraordinary things often spend long periods away from public attention. While others seek validation, they seek development. While others debate, they build. While others react, they prepare. Strategic disappearance is not weakness. It is often a sign of strength. The seed grows underground before anyone sees the tree. The warrior trains before entering the battlefield. The philosopher reflects before speaking. The master develops substance before seeking recognition. Yet modern culture encourages the opposite. It encourages people to announce goals before achieving them. It encourages constant visibility. It encourages endless performance. The Stoic path moves differently. It values quiet progress. It values disciplined action. It values results over appearances. This requires tremendous emotional control because the desire for recognition is deeply human. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be appreciated. Everyone wants confirmation that their efforts matter, but emotional detachment teaches a difficult lesson. Your work must become more important than the applause. Your principles must become more important than popularity. Your growth must become more important than recognition. When this shift occurs, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing validation and begin building substance. You stop monitoring opinions, begin refining character. You stop reacting to every disturbance and begin creating inner stability. This stability cannot be purchased. It cannot be inherited. It cannot be granted by society. It must be forged. And like all valuable things, it is forged through adversity. The Stoics did not seek comfort as the highest good. They sought strength. They understood that challenges reveal weaknesses that comfort conceals. Difficult people expose emotional vulnerabilities. Failure exposes attachment. Uncertainty exposes dependence upon control. Every obstacle becomes a mirror. Every setback becomes a teacher. Every disappointment becomes an opportunity to strengthen the mind. This is the essence of amor fati, the love of fate. Not merely accepting events, but using them. Not merely tolerating adversity, but transforming it. Not merely surviving obstacles, but growing because of them. When you adopt this perspective, life changes fundamentally. The insult becomes training. The rejection becomes redirection. The setback becomes preparation. The difficulty becomes development. Nothing is wasted. Everything becomes material for growth. And gradually, almost without noticing, you begin to develop a quality that cannot be faked. An unshakable presence. People sense it before they understand it. You become less reactive. Less desperate. Less dependent. less dependent upon approval, less vulnerable to manipulation. You move through life with greater calm because your center of gravity has shifted inward. The world may still be chaotic. People may still criticize. Plans may still fail. Circumstances may still change without warning. But your peace no longer depends upon controlling those things. Your peace depends upon governing yourself. And that is where true emotional detachment begins. The journey toward becoming unshakable does not end when you understand these principles. Understanding is only the beginning. The real challenge emerges when life tests what you claim to believe. Anyone can speak about emotional detachment during moments of comfort. Anyone can discuss resilience when circumstances are favorable. The true measure of your philosophy appears when reality refuses to cooperate with your expectations. A plan fails after months of effort. Someone you trusted disappoints you. An opportunity disappears without warning. A criticism strikes a sensitive wound. A period of uncertainty stretches far longer than anticipated. In these moments, knowledge alone is insufficient. Character must take over. This is why the Stoics placed such enormous emphasis on self-discipline. They understood that emotional stability is not a gift, it is a trained capacity. Just as the body becomes stronger through repeated resistance, the mind becomes stronger through repeated exposure to difficulty. Most people spend their lives trying to eliminate discomfort. The Stoics did the opposite. They trained themselves to face discomfort voluntarily so that involuntary hardships would lose their power. This approach seems strange to modern thinking. Society often promotes comfort as the ultimate objective. Yet comfort contains a hidden danger. What is constantly protected becomes fragile. What is constantly challenged becomes resilient. A person who avoids every inconvenience develops little tolerance for adversity. Small problems begin to feel enormous. Minor criticism feels devastating. Delays feel unbearable. Obstacles feel unfair. Meanwhile, the disciplined individual gradually expands their capacity to endure. They learn to remain calm when circumstances are uncomfortable. They learn to continue working when motivation disappears. They learn to stay focused when distractions multiply. Most importantly, they learn that feelings are not commands. This lesson alone can transform an entire life. Many people live under the assumption that emotions should dictate behavior. If they feel motivated, they work. If they feel discouraged, they stop. If they feel confident, they act. If they feel uncertain, they retreat. As a result, their progress becomes dependent upon emotional weather, but emotions are notoriously unstable. Confidence rises and falls. Motivation appears and disappears. Fear grows and shrinks. Excitement comes and goes. If your actions depend entirely upon these shifting states, consistency becomes impossible. The Stoics proposed a radically different model. Act according to reason, not impulse. Act according to principles, not moods. Act according to purpose, not emotional convenience. This is not emotional suppression. It is emotional leadership. The disciplined mind acknowledges feelings without surrendering authority to them. Fear may be present, but action continues. Doubt may be present, but progress continues. Discomfort may be present, but commitment remains intact. Over time, this creates extraordinary confidence, not the fragile confidence that depends upon success. Not the artificial confidence created by praise, but the deeper confidence that emerges from keeping promises to yourself. Every time you follow through despite resistance, you strengthen trust in your own character. Every time you remain calm during difficulty, you reinforce emotional stability. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you become harder to shake. Eventually, you stop asking whether you feel capable. You know you're capable because you have accumulated evidence through action. This internal evidence becomes more valuable than external validation. Most people seek confidence from the outside. They want reassurance. They want approval. They want guarantees. But confidence built upon external sources remains vulnerable because those sources can disappear at any moment. The Stoic seeks confidence through self-respect. And self-respect is earned. It emerges from integrity. It emerges from discipline. It emerges from repeatedly choosing what is right over what is easy. This distinction becomes especially important when dealing with criticism. Criticism has enormous power over those who have not developed an internal standard. When people do not know their own value, they become dependent upon others to define it. As a result, every opinion becomes emotionally significant. Every judgment feels personal. Every negative comment creates instability. But once an internal standard exists, criticism loses much of its influence. This does not mean ignoring all feedback. The Stoics were not arrogant. They understood that valuable criticism can reveal blind spots. The key is learning the difference between information and emotional injury. A wise person extracts useful information and discards unnecessary emotional baggage. If criticism contains truth, it becomes a tool for improvement. If criticism contains falsehood, it becomes irrelevant. In either case, emotional turmoil is unnecessary. Imagine how much energy becomes available when you stop carrying the weight of every opinion. Imagine how much focus returns when you no longer need universal approval. Imagine how much freedom emerges when your identity is no longer controlled by external judgment. This freedom is one of the rarest achievements in human life. Many people appear independent while remaining psychologically dependent. They may reject authority, but they still crave validation. They may claim confidence, but criticism still controls them. They may speak of authenticity, but their actions remain shaped by public approval. The Stoic path demands something deeper. It demands independence of mind. It demands the ability to stand alone when necessary. History repeatedly demonstrates that meaningful achievement often requires this capacity. The greatest thinkers, creators, leaders, and innovators frequently spent long periods misunderstood. Their ideas were questioned. Their methods were criticized. Their choices were doubted. Had they depended upon immediate approval, many would have abandoned their work long before success arrived. This reveals another essential aspect of emotional detachment. Patience. The emotionally reactive person demands immediate results, immediate recognition, immediate certainty, immediate rewards. The Stoic understands that reality rarely operates according to such timelines. Important goals require time. Character requires time. Mastery requires time. Transformation requires time. A tree does not grow overnight. A fortress is not built in a day. A disciplined mind is not developed in a week. Yet modern culture encourages patience. People compare their beginnings to someone else's destination. They abandon efforts that do not produce instant rewards. They mistake temporary discomfort for permanent failure. The Stoic refuses this trap. They focus on process rather than immediate outcomes. They measure success according to effort rather than applause. They evaluate progress according to character rather than popularity. This orientation creates remarkable stability because process remains within your control. Outcomes do not. You can control preparation. You can control discipline. You can control focus. You can control integrity. You cannot fully control results. Many people reverse this equation and suffer because of it. They obsess over outcomes while neglecting actions. They demand certainty while avoiding effort. They become emotionally attached to results that were never entirely theirs to control. The Stoics saw this as a direct path to frustration. Instead, they taught complete commitment to action, combined with complete detachment from outcomes. Work tirelessly, prepare thoroughly, act courageously. Then release your grip on the result. This mindset produces a paradox. When you stop desperately clinging to outcomes, performance often improves. Anxiety decreases. Focus sharpens. Energy becomes concentrated on execution rather than worry. you become fully present, and presence is one of the most powerful forms of emotional strength. Most suffering exists in imagined futures or remembered pasts. People replay old mistakes. They rehearse future disasters. They relive embarrassments. They anticipate failures. Meanwhile, the present moment receives very little attention. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly returned his focus to the present because he understood its importance. The present is where action occurs. The present is where choices are made. The present is where character is expressed. The past can teach. The future can guide. But neither should dominate the mind. An emotionally detached person understands this balance. They learn from yesterday without becoming trapped by it. They prepare for tomorrow without becoming consumed by it. They live primarily in the reality that exists before them. This creates a calmness that many people mistake for indifference. But it is not indifference. It is clarity. The detached person cares deeply about meaningful things. They care about excellence. They care about integrity. They care about growth. They care about fulfilling their responsibilities. What they refuse to do is waste emotional energy on what cannot be controlled. This distinction is crucial. Emotional detachment does not mean withdrawing from life. It means engaging with life more intelligently. It means investing energy where it can produce results. It means refusing to become emotionally entangled with forces beyond your influence. Over time, this approach creates a profound shift. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop requiring external permission to move forward. Instead, you begin exercising the only power that has ever truly belonged to you. Choice. The choice to respond rather than react. The choice to focus rather than complain. The choice to build rather than blame. The choice to grow rather than retreat. These choices seem small in isolation, yet they accumulate. Days become months. Months become years. And eventually, a different person emerges. A person who is difficult to intimidate because their confidence comes from character. A person who is difficult to manipulate because their worth is internally defined. A person who is difficult to discourage because obstacles have become training. A person who is difficult to distract because purpose has become stronger than impulse. This is what it means to become unshakable, but not invincible, not emotionless, not untouched by hardship, but grounded, centered, disciplined, free. The storms of life will continue. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. Opportunities will vanish. Loss will arrive. Change will remain inevitable. None of these realities can be avoided. The Stoics never promised escape from difficulty. They offered something far more valuable. The ability to meet difficulty with strength. The ability to maintain clarity when others panic. The ability to preserve character when circumstances deteriorate. The ability to remain steady while the world around you becomes unstable. And perhaps that is the greatest achievement available to any human being. To become the kind of person whose peace cannot be purchased by praise, destroyed by criticism, granted by success, or stolen by failure. To become the kind of person who understands that true power was never found in controlling the world. It was found in mastering yourself. Because the moment you stop allowing external events to govern your inner condition, you step into a freedom that few people ever experience. A freedom that cannot be given. A freedom that cannot be taken away. A freedom built upon discipline, wisdom, courage, and self-command. Master that freedom, and you will discover something extraordinary. The world may continue to move unpredictably around you, but within you, there will exist a place that remains calm, a place that remains clear, a place that remains strong, and from that place, you can face anything.